this is a rather sad episode of Shadow Parliament. The fact that, well, today is the 11th of September, September 11th, which is it's actually a normal day, but in this country, well, most people think of it as the day the clown died and the day the dog died. It's sort of ironic, really. We're coming along this day, and, well, in a way I didn't want to make an episode, but I had to. You see, there was a little bit of controversy in the fact that as we get farther from the day that it happened, I remember seeing on the news yesterday that some people were complaining that people were forgetting it. In the fact that September 11th, what about it? That kind of thing. And it is happening. People are starting to forget as the years go by. I can only imagine what it'll be like after 10 years, you know? In New York City, you know, where the World Trade Centers was, the towers is gone, and they were talking about building a new building there. The Freedom Towers. That's what it's called. I know, a real propaganda thing, but you know, something needs to be built there, you know? And we're like more than 5 years. We're almost at this point. We're almost 10 years there, and it's basically nothing more than a hole in the ground. So where does that leave us? You know, it's just sad. I mean, there is no doubt that people will forget. People say we will never forget. But we will. It's all a matter of time. People forgot the Alamo. People forgot Pearl Harbor. But at the time, people would swear not to forget. But like all things, it passes into history. It passes with time. People forget. Well, I'll be a little blunt here. People got more other things to worry about. But the only people that will remember are the families. They lost family members, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, best friends, nieces, nephews, godsons, goddaughters. They are the people that will never forget because they have no other choice. It is very sad for them. And the fact that their families are empty, and it would be empty for the rest of their lives. The members that are still alive, they'll never forget. And it's the whole concept that misery loves company. A lot of people say that if I should suffer, you should suffer. If I cannot forget, you cannot forget. That's why there is I remember seeing it on the television that there are some proposals to turn this day into a day of national service and remembrance. But even if this does happen, people will still forget. Because, that's another thing. Some of you who are watching, who may not be from America, may not know what this day is basically called now. It is called Patriot Day. Patriot Day. No, for those of you in the state of Massachusetts and New England, this is not the day that when you know, the whole Revolutionary War. No, this is that George Bush put a spin on it to turn our worst mistake into a day of, well, you know, we're all for America, you know. That's false patriotism right there. Because when it happened, everyone had flags outside their houses. Everyone said, I am an American. The whole George Bush logic in the fact that I'm an American, you know, red, white, and blue all the way. But as the years started to go by, the flags started to disappear. And people started to not want to talk about it. I mean, it's not the fact that, well, depending on your views of it, that Well, the attacks could have been avoided, which we'll talk about a little bit too. But in the fact that it is so painful. A whole generation was even traumatized because of this. I remember when the attacks happened that little kids, they were so afraid. There was this one clip on the news that like this little girl would actually run under her bed, run under her desk, run under anything when she heard an airplane through the air. Children would have nightmares. They would draw images of the towers. Like they would draw two buildings with planes flying into it on fire. I mean, this traumatized people. Not even children, adults. It's like, especially those who lived in the island of Manhattan, worked there, or was anywhere in the area when they saw it at the time. They saw people flying, jumping out of the buildings. And that when they were seen falling out, you couldn't search YouTube, you can search the internet, you could see clips of people falling out of the buildings, and when they would hit the ground, they would literally explode due to the impact. Body parts would be flying everywhere. I mean, what kind of thing is that for people to see? Like, you could also see images of how the street level and how other buildings look like when the towers collapsed. Dust was everywhere. It looked like a war zone. Literally, it looked like the world had ended. I have my television on right now, and it's actually showing basically people reciting the names. This is what happens. People come into the site. They hold pictures of their family members, friends, and some people take turns reading all the names of the people who were killed that day. And there's a time of silence when the first plane hit, when the first building fell, when the second plane hit, when the second building fell. I'm not really sure because they show it real early and I've never actually seen it myself. I've only seen it a few times, but it is very sad. It really did impact our view as a nation, and the fact that at the time we did not know what was happening. Was this a declaration of war? Would there be more attacks? And there was. The Pentagon was hit by another plane, and there was another plane, I believe it was Flight 93, that some of the passengers actually fought the terrorists and managed to almost take control of it before the terrorists crashed it in a field in Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania. But there's a lot more to discuss. Mostly because there are some aspects of this day that some people will not discuss. The conspiracies behind it, the whole political view behind it, and that is for our continuation of this episode. This has to be said. I've noticed the fact that if you say anything against the status quo, you're considered a traitor and you're considered crazy. Stuff that was basically done during the Bush years. And we're going to talk about it. It needs to be mentioned. It needs to be. Where does September 11th lead us? What is the status of our country now? And here in America, we have the phrase post 9/11 and pre 9/11. Life before that day and life after that day. Like I said, in other countries, it is a normal day, nothing has happened. But here, we live under the fear that it could happen again. Right after the attacks happened, we were very worried in the fact that Is it going to happen again? Am I going to get killed if I take a plane? Am I going to get killed if I take the subway? Am I going to get killed if I take public transportation? After the attacks, plane ridership fell to all-time levels. Nobody took the plane. People were afraid, and they had every right to. So here we are, years later, and the ridership has increased. Like I said, people have started to forget. People have their lives to live. They have to take planes, even if they don't want to. But when the attacks happened, I remember, due to the fact of where I live, there was coverage about September 11th for 3 days straight. You check your public news channel, nothing but the terrorist attacks. The whole day was in that time it was what happened, who died, who did it, what happened to the surrounding areas, and that's it. That's all we could do at the time. So Bush came over to the site and he did that classic phrase, who did this? Like, everyone's going to hear it and all that. Whoever did this is going to hear all of us soon. Oh my God. At the time, everyone thought that, we needed to do something. We were hit. We were attacked. And it was logical to do something about it. There was not this gung-ho attitude in the fact that, America is superior. It's in the fact that we were sucker punched. We were hit in the gut. And we need to do something about it. So, President Bush, wanted to go to Iraq. Oh, and by the way, if you want to see what I have to say about Iraq and Afghanistan, check out the other video I did, The Sad Truth of Iraq and Afghanistan. You should check out that episode of The Shadow Parliament. It's real good to see. You need to see it's the truth. So, Bush wanted to go to Iraq. He said that Saddam Hussein had something to do with it. Now, as we know, Saddam Hussein most likely had nothing to do with it. But Bush wanted to go there. But we're going to stay on September 11th. Now, you might hear some of the conspiracy theories, and chances are, if you see some of the results near this video, it's the fact that, September 11th, a vast conspiracy. Personally, I do believe it. I mean, most people who believe in the conspiracy theories believe in the fact that such a thing could not have been done by regular terrorists. It needed more. It needed more than what it was. It just couldn't have been just some guys in a plane from this Middle Eastern country that killed like 2,000 people. Killed all those people. And not just from America. Don't forget, Manhattan is one of the most, the World Trade Center is one of the most commercial locations in the world. People from Britain were killed. France, Japan, Korea, Germany, Russia, Canada. Not just Americans were killed. People were killed from many countries, and the whole view was this could not have been just that. It had to have been more. So we have wild conspiracy theories that it was our own country. It was a conspiracy of some sort to get people to get behind the conquest of Iraq for oil, Afghanistan, whatever. Now, you would have most likely seen videos of these things being debunked. Don't believe that. Believe what you want to believe. Don't believe what other people say. When you see this video, hear what I have to say, make your own conclusions. I'm not trying to convince anyone. I have my own views. You have your own views. And everyone else has their own views either. 3 different viewpoints. Mine, yours, theirs. I don't know. What is it? People are saying that, I remember some theories that the planes were remote controlled, that the planes were driven into the towers by remote control from some military base in New York State or something like that, or nearby. Or the fact that, boom, as the buildings were collapsing, bombs were strategically placed on appropriate floors of the buildings, which would cause them to explode and demolish faster. Because some say that the buildings could not have collapsed, that there would just be this gaping hole in them. A friend of mine told me that the terrorists' goal was not to have the towers collapse, but simply to have them with those giant holes in them that could not be fixed due to the height. Remember, the World Trade Center was like, what, I believe more than 100 feet, 100 floors? How could you fix something like that? Let's say that the towers stay there, and both towers would have a hole in it, a giant hole in it. And if anyone took a photograph of the towers, they would see the holes. If anyone was working in the towers, there'll be those huge holes in the floors right there. But due to the heat of the airplanes, don't forget, that's another thing. Both planes had a full supply of jet-free fuel, because don't forget, jets, they go back and forth across the country. They crisscross here, there, everywhere, and they had a lot of fuel. Fuel was burning, temperature increased, metal melted, concrete burned, and towers collapsed as a result. Everyone has their own experiences of that day. Like the whole, I don't know if I should say it's as the populist slogan, but it's definitely something along those lines. And the fact that, like, where were you? Were you at work? Were you at school? Were you at home? Were you here, there? What happened? Like, where were you when it happened? How did you hear about it? That's how it was. I'm not gonna say where I was. I'm trying to keep this as neutral as possible. But a lot of well, depending on where you were at the time, how should I say it? It's like most people. Well, the millennials were in their young teens at the time. The boomerang generation was in their mid to late teens at the time. Generation X was like in their early 30s at the time, generations wise. But there's still a lot more to discuss. I still have more to talk about regarding the conspiracies and how other countries reacted. Let's say that you're living in Europe, like, oh my God, what did they think? What did the Middle East think? And how did the American public react to people of